When we last left off with the StuG III G, Steve had just finished having a bit of an initial look at the transmission we'd just received. Now, unfortunately, we are going to have to pull it apart, clean it up, and put it back together again, a process likely to take a few weeks. Steve just hasn't had the time at the moment as he's knee-deep in Armour Fest prep. However, in the meantime, Beau has been putting the finishing touches on the wheels and suspension, and now it looks like we're finally ready to take it off the stands and onto the ground. This week, we're also going to watch him fit the brakes and some of the linkages. Hi, I'm Kurt from Armour, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday.
Evan McCallum and Adam Mann have been helping me out with the paint scheme and all that sort of stuff. Late Alcat and Miag vehicles were painted very dark, so their base coat wasn't actually Dunkelgelb, it was red brown or chocolate brown. Looking at Fort Benning's StuG, for example, the StuG III G, it's painted with chocolate brown. Most of the vehicle is painted that colour. So that's sort of what we're going for here because it's period correct. That tank is in original camo scheme still, and you can't be wrong. Would have differed a little bit, but primarily the same thing. The idea behind painting the hull side is so that we don't have to paint behind tracks and wheels when we fit the tracks later on. So we've got to lower the vehicle down. We want to test torsion bars, see what the wheels do.
And we don't have the track yet, do we?
We don't have the track yet, no. But it is coming. It'll probably be about a week away. The first time putting it on its wheels, see what the torsion bars do, see how everything goes.
Should hopefully go all right.
It'll be all right, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
While we were lowering the StuG, we thought it might be interesting to see how much the front torsion bar twisted. Here it is in real time. It's a bit tricky to see, so here it is sped up 5 times. It doesn't look like it's moved very much, and it hasn't, but bear in mind there's still no gun, no roof, and no transmission or differential. The other important thing to note is that there's no snapping or breaking sounds, always a good sign with torsion bars.
Sounded relieved, didn't it?
Yeah. Excuse me. Hey, so it's down.
That's down, yeah.
No snapping.
No snapping, no creaking. It's good. Torsion bars seem to be working well. Looks very good. So far.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, yeah.
The suspension has been the longest part of the build, and it's finally over. Now we can get back to the good stuff.
Yeah, so these weren't in the best condition. Everything was seized and caked with like mud and dirt. All the springs had corroded through. Everything needed to be pulled apart and recreated because there wasn't much left. We're very fortunate to have the housing and the brake shoes still. We've actually got the brake drums. At the moment they're being relined and machined. The brake pads were sitting on the brake drum and they had corroded into it, which would have given us terrible braking. I would have damaged the brake pads because it would have been hitting them constantly. It'd be like an interference.
These springs look pretty good. How did we get them?
These springs here, actually, we only just found out that we had them last week because all of the stuff that turned up for the StuG B had been duplicated about 10 times more than what we actually needed by Dimitri. We're lucky that he had actually gotten about 10 sets of everything recreated at the once instead of just getting enough springs for the StuG B. they're a special type of spring. They're not just something that we can go and buy off the shelf.
Oh, really?
They have been specially made for these braking units. Yeah.
What's special about them?
The thickness and the length. The spring had have come to the end, we could have issues with it fouling on this nut here. So there's a lot of things that could happen if they weren't made properly. And these are made copying original springs from a StuG III brake housing. We've got a seal here, and behind that's a roller bearing. And this is where our main drive flange slips through. There is a spline that comes through here on the ball gear that runs inside of the final drive housing. And this component here, the spline inside slips over a male spline, and then that is what creates drive. This is actually a bearing inner. So you basically take a bearing, remove the inner off of it, and this is what the bearing surface runs on.
Did you have to do any work to that?
So we had to build this surface up and this surface here, just to ensure that the bearing's got a nice smooth surface to run on. I prepped them, heated them, preheated them, welded them, and then post-heated them and let them cool down in a fire blanket. This is where another seal runs inside on the back of the final drive. So you've got two seals on this unit, and then this is where this seal runs on here. So this part slips down inside, just like this, and will rotate. So the other interesting part about this brake setup is the exhaust system on it. So it's not just a housing for the brakes, it also has a built-in exhaust system. So on the back of your brake shoe here, you've got holes which feed into a channel inside this housing. And once the brakes start wearing and the dust is being created, it gets sucked through these holes, and then it goes through another hole which joins to another hole in the brake housing, and in the back of this is a cavity, and it all gets pulled out of this exhaust outlet here. And there is piping going to the back of the transmission. The actual drive flange on the back of the transmission has a fan on it. So there's a fan spinning with the engine, and it's creating pressure inside here, a small amount, and it's pulling the air through the system. So it pulls the air out through the piping, and then it gets rid of it out through the engine bay, down the drive shaft tunnel. The springs on top aren't the only springs. We've also got these light springs down here, and they connect to the other side of the brake shoe, but they sort of are just like a support spring, and they hold it down onto these guide plates. That's pretty much their only purpose. How this works is there will be a clevis on this end here with a rod going up to another clevis, and when you pull your steering lever, it pulls this rod, this arm upwards, so the arm goes this way. And when you start pulling, it starts to spread the brake shoes apart because this block is tapered. So this goes upwards. There won't be that much movement. It might move as much as 4 mil or something like that.
Wow, but that's
to
its
activate.
full. Like you could adjust it all the way down if the brakes were really worn to go that far.
Yeah, exactly right, yeah.
Show us again.
So there is a bit of adjustment to be made to these, because one side's pulling on a lot more than the other, or that may be how they have actually designed it, to have one side pulled on first, because you've got your leading edge of your brake pads too, you've got to think about. So you want one side to be pulling on before the other in some applications with brake drums. And then up here you've got more adjustment. So this is a cap screw. It's an Allen key bolt, basically. This is an original one, so they actually did have these. These are just another type of adjustment. If you undo these two cap screws, you've got a slotted hole, and you can adjust your brake shoes from side to side. Yeah, you've got enough adjustment to wear your brakes down until they actually get to the rivet head, I'd say. And then you're probably best to change them out. It's not going to see much use, and I think that these brake pads probably lasted a long time.
The progress from when we received these to now is just breathtaking.
Beau and Glenn have just done such a fantastic job. Now it's time to fit them to the vehicle. In case you're wondering, that's Steve in the background playing with our Firefly.
Pretty much it. There. Pull the top in. I'm going to go one more. So that's over the seals. We're just going to do little adjustments to get this over the bearing. All the way. That's it. It's our locking nut. We haven't got a locking washer for it yet. This is just going on first, just for now.
So we don't lose it.
Just so we don't lose it, so this doesn't come back off somehow. But there needs to be a locking washer in there first, yes. That sounds nice. Nice and easy to move.
No hard spots.
No hard spots. Good, it means the gears are meshing well. Like I'm not putting much pressure on that at all.
How good's that?
Yeah, it's good, perfect.
After fitting the passenger side brake, Beau moved on to the linkages.
So what we've got here are steering linkages, accelerator pedals, clutch pedals, all that sort of thing. All of the linkages to be able to drive the vehicle and steer it. I've already cleaned them up previously, but they've been sitting around for so long that I'm going to have to pull them apart, just make sure there's no rust in, wire wheel it and re-grease everything again. Then we can fit them to the vehicle. And these are all original from this vehicle. So when we received this vehicle, it still had the front portion of the floor.
Yeah.
And it had all of the linkages still attached. So we're very lucky to have all these parts, otherwise we'd be lost. Pedal is bent because that's how it's been made. They manufactured it like that, offset, so the pedal was over this way of the pivot point, because if it was here, then I suppose it would have been too close to the clutch pedal.
Right,
so it's for driver comfort.
And your heel goes on this little...
Yeah, these positions sit above the torsion bars, and that's where your heel would sit. And this is where your linkage goes back to your carburetor. So this is actually the linkage for the throttle of the vehicle. So this would have gone on here, pressed on, just like that.
Yeah.
And that's that would have gone all the way back to the engine, and this is how you get your throttle. Very simple idea,
Wow.
but it worked. So this is your clutch pedal. The pivot point for this is actually on the front driver's side torsion bar housing. there's a special pin that comes off the torsion bar housing, and this pivot's on that. It's seized, solid.
So we don't know what that cutout's for yet.
Yeah, you know what? It might be for a tab washer, possibly.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, for when the rod goes in here, you've got a locking nut, and maybe that's a tab for a washer.
So it won't matter what side it is, hopefully.
This is wax and grease remover. It's used to prepare metal surfaces for painting.
That's it. That's just a retaining washer to stop the pedal coming back off.
That's the torsion bar just there.
Yep. Yeah, we put a clevis here. I've just got that there just so you can see how it sort of works. There's a stopper built onto this rod so that it can't go too far forward. It's adjustable, so it's got a thread on it so you can adjust the stop position.
The left tiller
Yep.
runs along here, along this shaft to this point.
And there's a clevis here which attaches to a rod just like what you see here.
Yep.
And that runs up through this groove. And this is the mounting point for the differential.
Yep.
And that will attach to another clevis that will be up here. So something similar to this that we just haven't made and attached to this yet because we've been a bit unsure of what to do there.
This one.
So the right tiller, when you pull this right tiller backwards,
Yep.
it pulls, runs along here, and it pulls this arm back, which then travels up through this groove on this side, and it will pull this arm back, which pulls the opposite side upwards, and that's activating the brakes. had a manual clutch lever on the side of the engine. One end of the clevis attaches to this linkage on your clutch pedal, and it actually goes through the center of the steering tiller, and then that rod connects to this one here, which then rotates this back and forth, and there would be another rod that travelled to the side of the bell housing on the engine, which activated your throw-out bearing. That's simple, but it's there's a lot going on.
Sure is.
Yeah, but that's just how they made it work. It's clever. Looks good.
That's all we have time for today. Join us next Wednesday for your weekly tank restoration fix. So until then, I'm Kurt from Armour, and I'll see you on the next one.
So that we can lower this beast onto its own weight. Blah, blah, blah. Let's try it again. Now after a little bit more, after giving it a little bit more thought, in the meantime, Beau has finally finished the suspension and is just finished put the finishing touches on it. Going to be looking at putting the brakes together and pull apart. Unfortunately, he's been a bit busy with Armour prep before he's... When we last left off the StuG III G restoration, but Steve has just been too busy with Armour prep. Pulling apart, stripping down. Beau has just finished putting the final... A little bit too busy. Is that on? Yes. When we last... Steve was just checking out the transmission we'd received for this... Steve had just finished inspecting the new transmission. But Beau has been busy putting the finishing touches on the wheels and suspension, the stands. This week we're also going to watch Beau fit the brakes and some of the linkages. Welcome to Workshop Wednesday. One more time. We can do this. When we last left off the StuG III G, welcome to Workshop Wednesday.